Most people unknowingly seal their circumstances with a single sentence, not through action, but through agreement. They speak casually, honestly, even innocently, yet the words they repeat become instructions. Tonight, you are being asked to notice something subtle that has been shaping your life far longer than effort ever could. You may believe that words simply describe reality, that they report what is already happening. But what if words are not mirrors at all? What if they are seeds? And what if many have been planted faithfully, without realizing what harvest they demand? It feels reasonable to say, "I can't afford this," or "money is tight right now." It sounds responsible. It sounds truthful. But truth spoken without wisdom can bind instead of free. There is a difference between recognizing a condition and accepting it as final. When someone repeatedly names lack, they are not being punished. They are being obeyed. Life responds exactly as it is instructed. It does not argue. It does not interpret tone. It simply arranges circumstances to match what has been declared as real. You may wonder how words could matter when bills are real and numbers are visible. But what you see today is the echo of yesterday's agreements. Conditions follow conviction, and conviction is quietly shaped by what you allow yourself to say. Many people wait for evidence before changing their language. They believe confidence must follow results, but the law works in the opposite direction. Results follow assumption. Speech is not the reward of abundance, it is the doorway. There is a reason certain phrases drain you the moment you speak them. It is not guilt, it is recognition. Something within knows that every declaration is a contract, and once signed, life begins honoring it immediately. This does not mean pretending circumstances do not exist. It means refusing to crown them as authority. You are not asked to deny the present, only to stop reinforcing it. Silence is better than naming lack. Expectation is stronger than complaint. When someone acts as if they are supported, life reorganizes to justify that stance. Help appears, ideas surface, timing shifts. Not because of effort, but because the inner agreement has changed, and reality must follow. You may have noticed that confident people often receive before they deserve. They speak from assurance rather than evidence. That assurance is not arrogance, it is alignment. They are not waiting for permission to expect good. Speaking poverty, even softly, is an invitation for limitation to stay. It tells life, this is acceptable. Acting as if you are wealthy does not mean reckless spending. It means refusing to rehearse scarcity with your voice. There is a discipline here, but it is gentle. You are not required to affirm loudly or convince anyone else. You are simply asked to choose words that point forward instead of anchoring backward. The tongue is small, but its authority is vast. Notice how often lack is spoken automatically. It becomes social language, bonding language. But every repetition strengthens the pattern. What you agree with publicly becomes what life defends privately. When you stop naming poverty, something interesting happens. The mind grows uncomfortable. It searches for old phrases. This discomfort is not danger. It is change. A new identity is forming, and the old one is losing its voice. You are not lying when you speak wealth before it appears. You are selecting the pattern you agree to live under. All creation begins this way. First declared, then arranged, then revealed. Those who understand this law guard their speech carefully, not out of fear, but respect. They know words are living forces. Once released, they continue working long after they are forgotten. If you feel resistance to this idea, notice it without judgment. Resistance often signals recognition. Something deep knows this is true. and knows it will require responsibility. Acting as if you are wealthy begins inwardly. It sounds like trust. It sounds like calm expectation. It sounds like refusing to dramatize lack. Even in difficulty, it chooses dignity over despair. Life responds quickly to this shift, sometimes subtly, sometimes suddenly, but always precisely. Support flows where it is expected. Opportunity appears where it is assumed. You do not need to announce this change to anyone. Quiet alignment carries more power than public declaration. Let your words change first. Circumstances will follow without being chased. Tonight, listen not for instruction, but recognition. You already know which words weaken you. You already know which phrases close doors. Awareness alone begins the release. From this point forward, let your speech point to supply, even when evidence lags. Let your tone reflect trust, even when timing is unclear. The law does not require perfection, only direction. This message is not about blame. It is about freedom. You are not trapped by conditions. You are supported by alignment. And alignment begins with what you agree to speak. Listen carefully now. Something old is being undone. Something new is being authorized. And it begins, quietly, with your words. As I speak to you now, I want you to feel, not merely with your ears, but with the deepest chamber of your inner life, that every word you have ever spoken has been tracing the outline of your experience. Most people believe that life happens to them first, and their speech follows afterward, as a mere description of events already fixed. But the great secret I learned long ago, and the secret I have watched transform thousands of lives, is that life is the obedient servant of the spoken word. The tongue does not describe conditions, it gives them direction. So when a man, even in innocence, says, "I am poor," or "I never get ahead," or "money is tight," he sends forth a decree into the unseen, and the unseen begins gathering its materials to build precisely what he has spoken. I recall a woman who came to me with a face drawn long by worry. Before she told me her story, I could feel that she had been speaking poverty for years. She looked at me and sighed. "Mrs. Shinn, I am always just scraping by." She spoke the sentence as though it were a noble confession of fact, something she was obliged to repeat to prove her honesty. I said to her gently, "My dear, you are not scraping by because of circumstance. You are scraping by because you have named yourself as one who scrapes." She looked startled, for she believed her speech merely reported reality. But speech does not report, it creates. The moment she stopped naming her struggle, the struggle ceased needing to obey her decree. She began affirming softly each morning, "I walk in abundance. What I need appears in perfect ways," and in a short time, new avenues of income opened, old debts lifted, and her home took on a lightness that had been missing for years. Many people bind themselves with the rope of plain-spoken lack, believing that calling a thing as it is shows responsibility. But responsibility without understanding is bondage. You are not asked to deny the appearance before you, but you are commanded by spiritual law not to crown the appearance as authority. If a man looks at a field in winter and declares aloud, "Nothing grows here," he speaks a temporary condition into permanence. But the farmer who understands seasons says, "The soil is resting, the harvest is forming beneath." You must learn to speak of your life in the language of seasons, not sentences of doom. I have seen fortunes collapse under the weight of a single foolish line. A man once approached me lamenting that every time he gained a little, something swept it away. As he talked, I heard him say under his breath, "Well, that's my luck." I stopped him. "There," I said, "is the thief." He had been speaking that line for years, so often, in fact, that he had forgotten he said it, but the subconscious never forgets. It receives every whisper as instruction. I asked him to speak instead. Everything moves in my favor now, and within months, the misfortunes ceased. Not by chance, but by correction of law. You may wonder how such simple phrases hold such immense power. It is because the subconscious mind, your silent partner in creation, does not judge between truth and falsehood. It judges only between acceptance and rejection. If you say often enough, "I can't afford it," the subconscious agrees and shuts the gates. If you say, "My supply comes in perfect ways," it opens channels you cannot foresee. And if you speak nothing at all, the subconscious acts upon the last strong decree it received, whether wise or foolish. Many repeat their poverty not only aloud, but in the privacy of their thoughts, and they believe that because no ear hears them, the words are harmless. But the subconscious is not impressed by volume, it is impressed by impression. A whispered sentence creating fear carries more force than a shouted affirmation spoken without conviction. This is why I teach that every word must be chosen as though it were a brick in the wall of your future, for it is. Let me share with you another case. A young woman worked in a modest shop, earning little and expecting little. She often said to her companions, "I suppose I'll always be poor. It runs in my family." I told her, "Poverty does not run in families. Phrases run in families. Break the phrase, and you break the pattern." She looked at me uncertainly, but she obeyed. She began saying, "Success runs in my family now. I claim my rightful prosperity." She said it shyly at first, for it contradicted everything she had seen. But the subconscious does not consult the past. It obeys the new decree. Soon she was offered a position in a larger establishment, then another, each one better than the last. Her relatives, long accustomed to saying, "We never get ahead," began asking her how she had escaped the family fate. She said to me, with tears in her eyes, "It feels as though a door opened." And I replied, "Yes, the door your words fitted for the key." Words do not merely influence circumstances, they escort them. They go ahead of you like heralds, announcing your expectations before you arrive. A man who repeatedly says, "People take advantage of me," will find himself surrounded by opportunists because his word instructed them to appear. A woman who says, "I am always passed over," will find herself invisible in the eyes of those meant to bless her. But the one who says, "I prosper wherever I turn," creates an atmosphere of confidence so tangible that others respond without knowing why. Even biblical stories portray this truth. The Israelites, standing at the border of their promised land, declared, "We are as grasshoppers," and so they were, grasshoppers in their own sight and in the sight of those who heard them. Their words sealed their delay. Yet Caleb and Joshua said, "We are well able," and though the nation refused to believe them, those two alone entered the promised land. Speech separated the destinies. When you speak poverty, you are not punished, you are obeyed. Life arranges itself to satisfy your decree. And when you stop speaking it, life rearranges itself just as quickly. You need not shout. You need not perform. You need only declare truth calmly until your subconscious accepts it as new law. Others will begin to see the change in you even before your finances shift. They will notice that you no longer join in conversations of complaint. They will see that you do not cringe when bills arrive. They will observe a dignity in your bearing, a steadiness in your tone, a newfound grace in the way you discuss your affairs. And without knowing why, they will treat you as though you are already prosperous, for inward prosperity becomes visible long before it becomes measurable. Say softly within yourself, even now, "I no longer speak poverty. My word is abundance, and abundance returns to me. The moment you declare it, the atmosphere around you begins to change. The subconscious leans forward, attentive. The old patterns grow faint, as though losing permission to continue. A new identity stirs within you, not one of strain, but one of expectancy. And now that you understand how deeply your words mold your world, we move into an even subtler chamber of truth, how the subconscious receives these words as final decree, even when you believe you are merely expressing your feelings. As you grow still and listen from the deeper chamber of your being, I want you to understand a mystery so tender and so exact that when you grasp it, you will never again speak lightly of your own words. For the subconscious mind, the silent worker, the faithful servant, the secret engine of your affairs, does not wait for your permission to accept a decree. It does not ask whether you meant what you said. It does not consult your tone, your history, your intentions, or your explanations. It accepts every sentence uttered with feeling as final law, and it proceeds to build tomorrow upon whatever blueprint your speech has provided today. The conscious mind is the watchman at the gate, choosing which impressions shall enter, but most people have trained their watchman poorly. They allow him to sleep on duty. They let him be bribed by fear, distracted by worry, or lulled by habit. They speak words of lack not because they believe in lack, but because they are accustomed to repeating it. And the watchman, so drowsy from years of inattention, nods and lets the statements pass unchallenged. The subconscious receives them with reverence, for it believes that any sentence repeated with emotional charge must be the true will of the individual. A woman once said to me, "But Mrs. Shinn, I do not believe I am poor. I merely say I am." That is precisely the danger, for the subconscious assumes that what a person says aloud is what they have chosen. It does not interpret nuance. It does not sort the "I didn't mean it" from the "I said it plainly." It simply acts. And because it acts in silence, without explaining its reasoning, most people never realize that they themselves have been issuing orders against their own prosperity. I recall a gentleman who came to me feeling terribly defeated. He said, "No matter how hard I work, doors close in my face." As he spoke, I could hear the rhythm of repetition. He had said this same line hundreds of times in his life. I told him gently, "My dear man, it is not that doors close in your face, it is that you have instructed the subconscious to shut them. Your words go out into the invisible and tell life what to do." He protested, saying, "But I said it because it was true." I answered, "It is true because you said it." He looked startled, but when he replaced the phrase with, "Every door appointed for me opens wide," and made it his constant decree, his life responded in kind. Doors opened precisely when needed, not by accident, but by obedience. Many believe that their subconscious only hears deliberate affirmations spoken in quiet moments. They think they must sit still, breathe deeply, and announce their intentions with ceremony. But the subconscious is always listening. It hears you when you mutter beneath your breath, when you sigh in frustration, when you say to a friend, "I'm so broke," or "Nothing ever changes," or "It's always the same." These small sentences slip past the watchman because they feel casual, harmless. Yet they are the most dangerous of all, for they are delivered with strong feeling, resentment, fear, resignation, envy, and feeling is the chisel that carves the impression deep. A young woman once confessed to me that although she declared prosperity each morning, she spent her afternoons telling coworkers how overwhelmed and unsupported she felt. Her affirmations had been swift and bright, but her complaints were slow and emotional. I told her, "You have fed your subconscious a lion in the morning and 1,000 mice in the afternoon. The mice have eaten the lion." She laughed, but she understood. She changed her speech, and her circumstances followed with surprising speed. Let me give you a picture, for the subconscious responds beautifully to symbol. Imagine that your mind is a grand estate, and at its gates stands a watchman with a lantern. His duty is to examine every statement you utter and decide whether it shall enter the grounds. If you say, "I can never get ahead," and the watchman is alert, he will reply, "That is not true, and it shall not pass." But if you say it casually, repeatedly, with weary emotion, the watchman lets it through, believing it must be important if it is said so often. Once inside, the statement becomes a guest, and like all unwelcome guests, it makes itself at home. It wanders through the chambers of your subconscious, rearranging furniture, opening sealed rooms, disturbing the harmony that belongs to you by right. You must retrain the watchman. You must teach him to recognize the vibration of fear and forbid it entry. You must give him new instructions, for the watchman is loyal but easily misled. Each time you speak abundance, he grows stronger. Each time you refuse to repeat lack, he stands taller. And soon, you will find that the poverty statements which once slipped through your lips now feel foreign, as though you have outgrown them. There is a story I often recall of a woman whose mother and grandmother had always said, "We are not the fortunate type." She inherited this phrase as one might inherit a shawl, worn, frayed, but familiar. She did not believe it deeply, yet she said it often, for it made her feel at home in her lineage. But lineage is not destiny. One day she realized that every time she spoke those words, she stepped into the shadow of the women before her. She wanted light, not shadow. She began to say instead, "I walk under divine favor. The right thing comes at the right time." At first, she felt disloyal to her family's old pattern. But soon, she saw that by blessing her life, she blessed her lineage, for she became the first in her family to break free from generational limitation. Her relatives marveled at her rising fortunes. They said, "You have such good luck." She replied, "No, I have a new agreement." Let me bring in the story of the Israelites in the wilderness. They had seen miracle after miracle, yet they continually said, "We shall perish." And so they wandered for 40 years, not because God withheld blessing, but because their tongue continually instructed the subconscious to circle the same barren sands. Their promised land was only a short distance away, but their speech kept them in a mental wilderness. Only when a new generation arose, one that spoke victory instead of defeat, did the nation finally cross into Canaan. Speech separated wandering from arrival. You may say, "But Mrs. Shinn, what if I speak abundance but feel fear?" The subconscious takes the spoken word as the command and the feeling as the flavor. A decree spoken calmly, even with trembling, has power. A decree spoken boldly but insincerely is still accepted. It is only the contradictory word that confuses the subconscious. If you speak abundance one moment and poverty the next, the subconscious obeys the stronger decree. So speak abundance more often, more gently, more consistently, until your speech grows so steady that poverty has no place to cling. Others will begin to notice your mastery long before your bank account reflects it. They will hear the dignity in your tone. They will see the steadiness in your eyes. They will sense that you no longer see yourself as life's beggar, but as one claimed by divine inheritance. And they will treat you accordingly. Opportunities gravitate toward the one who speaks as though supply is certain. People respond to the person who does not crumble into complaint. Even your posture changes, your shoulders lift, your breathing deepens, your gait steadies. You become the outward echo of an inward decree. Say within yourself now, quietly but firmly, only abundance may enter my subconscious. I reject the poverty pattern now and forever. Feel the watchman at the gate raise his lantern. Feel the subconscious wait in stillness for your next decree. You are not fighting lack. You are re-educating the mind that once accepted it. And now that you understand how poverty enters through the gate of careless speech, we turn to an even more powerful law. The law that whatever you send out returns to you multiplied, like a boomerang shaped by your own tongue. There is a law so exact, so impartial, so quietly obedient, that once a seeker truly comprehends it, he becomes deeply careful with his tongue. It is the law that every word sent forth returns multiplied. Not merely repeated, not merely echoed, but multiplied, given back to you in greater measure than when it left your lips. For the spoken word, once released, does not fade into the air. It becomes a living force moving through the unseen, gathering its own kind, drawing events and circumstances into alignment with its nature. When a man speaks lack, he sends forth a messenger that returns leading an army of similar conditions. When he speaks abundance, his word returns with a host of blessings. The boomerang law is never delayed, never confused, never mistaken about its sender. It always comes home. I recall a man who came to me in great distress, lamenting that misfortune pursued him. He said, "Mrs. Shinn, I do not understand why trouble always finds its way to my door." His face bore the weary stamp of a long struggle. As he spoke, I noticed he used the phrase "just my luck" repeatedly, as though it were a signature on every complaint. I said to him gently, "My dear man, you have engraved misfortune upon your path with your own words. Every time you say 'just my luck,' you fling a boomerang that returns bearing a new disappointment." He looked startled. "But I did not mean it literally," he said. I answered, "The subconscious does not know when you mean a thing literally. It knows only that you said it." I taught him to replace his old decree with, "Everything moves in my favor. I expect the unexpected good." He said it daily, at times doubtfully, at times with a whisper of hope, and within a short time, his affairs took an unexpected turn. Blessings arrived in ways he had not dared imagine. He returned to me weeks later, marveling, "It feels as though the winds changed direction." I smiled and replied, "They changed because your word changed." The boomerang law works with equal precision in the affairs of women. A woman once complained to me that no matter how hard she tried, her money always slipped away. As she spoke, she gestured with her hands as though scattering coins into the air. She had repeated this phrase for years, and the subconscious had accepted it as her chosen pattern. The more she worked, the more her money seemed to evaporate. I said to her, "Your words have been sending forth a decree of loss, and the subconscious, faithful servant that it is, has fulfilled your desires exactly. Speak instead. What I spend returns multiplied. What I give blesses and returns again." She obeyed, though at first it felt foreign. Soon, however, small changes began. Unexpected refunds appeared. Opportunities for saving emerged. A friend repaid an old loan she had forgotten. Within months, she found herself with more money on hand than she had managed to keep in years. She said, "My purse feels enchanted." I replied, "It feels natural, for your word has stopped scattering your supply and started gathering it. You must understand that the spoken word does not merely influence your finances, it shapes your relationships, your health, your opportunities, and even the way others perceive you." I once counseled a seamstress who lamented that her customers were always difficult. She repeated this phrase with great animation, painting dramatic pictures of dissatisfaction. I said, "Your customers are obedient to your decree. You have told life to send you those who trouble you, and life has replied, 'As you wish.'" I taught her to affirm, "All my customers are satisfied and appreciative. I attract only delightful clients." She resisted at first, believing it untrue. But truth is not measured by appearances. Truth is measured by spiritual law. Shortly after, she found that her clients became kinder, easier to please, and more generous with payment. Her entire manner changed. She greeted each person with expectancy instead of dread, and they responded to the new atmosphere she carried. Let me illustrate this law with a picture familiar to all gardeners. When a man throws a seed into the air, it does not vanish. It lands somewhere, takes root, and produces after its kind. If he throws a handful of thistle seeds, he will not harvest roses. If he scatters wheat, he will not reap weeds. The subconscious is the field into which every spoken word falls. The harvest appears in due season, not because of luck or misfortune, but because of law. The boomerang is the returning harvest, the sprouting of the seed that was flung into the soil of the unseen. Even Scripture confirms the boomerang law. "As ye sow, so shall ye reap," is not limited to deeds, but includes words, for words are deeds of the tongue. Christ said, "By thy words shalt thou be justified, and by thy words shalt thou be condemned." This does not mean condemned by divine punishment, but by the natural consequence of the mental seed sown. When Christ spoke to the fig tree and said, "No man eat fruit of thee hereafter," the tree withered, not because Christ was angry, but because the word carried power and the tree obeyed. If a fig tree must obey the spoken word, how much more shall your affairs obey your speech? A young man once came to me with the belief that opportunities never come his way. I said, "They never come because you have turned them back with your own tongue." He argued that he was merely stating a truth. I replied, "You are not stating truth, you are stating a pattern. Change the pattern and truth changes." I instructed him to say, "Every right opportunity seeks me out, and I recognize it instantly." Within a few weeks, one opportunity after another appeared. Employment, friendship, and even an unexpected chance to travel. He said, "It feels as though something invisible is arranging things." And I answered, "It is arranging what your word commanded." You may begin to notice something curious as you change your speech. People react differently. When you speak lack, they pity you or overlook you. When you speak abundance, they regard you with a respect you may never have experienced. It is not arrogance to speak truth, it is spiritual dignity. Others can sense when a person carries themselves as one who has access to unseen supply. They are drawn to such a person. They offer opportunities, extend kindness, and trust your presence. You need not explain your methods. Your results speak for you. The boomerang law does not discriminate between joking words and serious words. A woman once told me she often said, "I'm dead broke," and laughed, yet her finances were consistently dire. I said to her, "The subconscious does not laugh with you." She replaced the phrase with, "I am abundantly supplied," and her affairs soon reflected the new decree. Imagine now that every word you speak is carved into a tablet and placed upon the altar of the subconscious. The subconscious reads it not once, but again and again, until the instruction becomes the pattern of your days. You do not need to fear this law, but you must respect it. You must choose your words as carefully as a jeweler chooses gems, for each one will be fashioned into form. Say within yourself now, "My word returns multiplied in blessings. I speak only that which I wish to receive." Let the vibration of that decree move through you. Feel its certainty. Feel the watchman at the gate standing tall with new authority. Feel the subconscious quieting, attentive, ready to obey. And now that you know the power of the returning word, we shall go deeper still into the law of the creative picture, where speech forms the mold into which prosperity pours. There is a silent realm within every man where pictures are formed long before events appear, and this realm, the imagination, holds more authority over your affairs than any condition you can see with your outer eyes. The spoken word is the decree, but the picture is the mold. The word is the command, but the image is the vessel. When the word and the picture agree, manifestation becomes swift, graceful, and certain. But when a man speaks abundance while picturing lack, or pictures abundance while speaking defeat, his life becomes divided, and the subconscious, confused by contradictory orders, delays its delivery of good. Most people believe they hold their mental pictures privately, but nothing is private in the subconscious realm. Every picture you entertain, especially during emotion or repetition, becomes a blueprint placed upon the divine drafting table. And the subconscious, like a master builder, follows the blueprint exactly, not improving it, not questioning it, not interpreting it, but reproducing it with perfect fidelity. So when a man speaks poverty, he does not merely offend his prosperity. He distorts the picture. He gives the builder a cracked mold, and the builder must obey. I once counseled a woman who insisted on speaking only positive words, yet her life remained barren of prosperity. I looked at her and said, "My dear, you speak abundance, but you picture struggle. Your words say plenty, but your mind paints a picture of lack." She gasped, for she recognized it immediately. Each time she affirmed supply, she simultaneously imagined unpaid bills, emergencies, and the sorrow of insufficiency. The subconscious received the picture, not the sentence. I taught her to imagine instead a peaceful writing desk with envelopes stamped "paid in full," a purse that opened easily and remained full, and her own face relaxed with satisfaction. She practiced these images nightly, allowing them to settle gently over her mind like warm oil. Soon her affairs shifted. Payments were made, income increased. She told me, "It feels as though the picture stepped out of my mind and into my life." I said, "It did exactly that." Another man I met worked tirelessly in a profession he disliked, believing opportunity would never come. He spoke of progress, but inwardly he pictured himself stuck, cramped in a narrow space, unseen and unvalued. This inner picture carried more weight than his spoken words. The subconscious obeyed the cramped image. When he came to me, weary of his own stagnation, I instructed him to close his eyes each night and imagine a wide, sunlit doorway opening before him, a place prepared for him, a welcome committee of circumstances drawing him forward. The picture, once accepted by the subconscious, produced a remarkable series of events. A new acquaintance recommended him for a better position, his confidence increased, and before long, he stepped into work that delighted him. He said, "I walked into the picture," and indeed, he had. The scriptures are rich with stories of divine pictures forming before manifestation. Abraham was shown the stars, not as an astronomy lesson, but as a picture of countless blessings. Joshua was told to see Jericho fallen before a single stone moved. Ezekiel saw dry bones knit together into life, and the picture preceded the miracle. In each case, the outward fulfillment followed the inner vision. Spirit speaks in images, for images bypass argument and impress truth directly upon the subconscious. Yet even the clearest picture is sabotaged by the careless tongue. I have known women who pictured their homes radiant with peace, but continually spoke of irritable husbands, difficult children, and endless frustrations. Their speech shattered the mold and reshaped the picture into unrest. But when they began to affirm, "Divine love reigns in this home," their imaginations softened, and they began to see themselves moving through harmonious rooms. And as their pictures changed, their homes followed suit. A woman once told me she dreamed of companionship, yet she always spoke of men as unreliable. Her inner picture was a beautifully set table with 2 chairs, but her outer word declared disappointment. The subconscious cannot serve 2 masters. I told her, "You must allow your word and picture to match." She began saying, "Divine selection now presents my perfect companion." And she imagined the second chair near hers, filled with warm presence. Soon, a man appeared whose character matched the picture more closely than she dared hope. A powerful truth must be understood here. Your picture is the mold, your word is the substance poured into it. A cracked mold produces a cracked result. A mold shaped by poverty talk produces fragile, uncertain demonstrations. But a mold shaped by abundance, strengthened by truth, produces manifestations that endure. Let me give you a small but potent symbol. Imagine yourself holding a vessel, beautiful, sturdy, fashioned for overflow. That vessel is your mental picture of prosperity. If you breathe into it the words, "I never have enough," the vessel collapses. But if you whisper, "All that is mine by divine right now appears," the vessel grows firm. And as you drift into sleep, the subconscious fills the vessel according to its shape. You need only provide the form. Spirit provides the substance. A woman once practiced this symbol with great devotion. She pictured herself drawing water from an endless well. Each time she repeated the picture, she felt a lightness in her chest, as though something had released. Soon, opportunities appeared, small at first, then larger. She said to me, "I no longer fear the future." And I replied, "Of course you do not. You have pictured yourself with a well that cannot run dry." Even your posture changes when your inner pictures shift. People notice. They may say, "You seem brighter," or "There is something different about you." They sense that you no longer envision yourself as burdened or small. They feel the expansion before they see its outer results. A man who pictures himself prosperous walks differently. His shoulders lift, his steps steady, his tone deepens. A woman who envisions abundance carries a glow that cannot be imitated. Others respond instinctively. You must also understand the danger of picturing poverty, even unconsciously. A woman once told me she always imagined worst-case scenarios to prepare herself. I said, "You are not preparing yourself. You are rehearsing disaster. Stop painting the very scenes you fear." She replaced her pictures with visions of ease and divine timing, and her life ceased offering her things to fear. The subconscious loves simplicity. A single clear picture repeated nightly will accomplish more than hours of strained imagining. It does not require elaborate detail. It requires sincerity and consistency. You need only choose a picture that symbolizes relief, provision, or joy. Something small but potent. A growing seed, a rising sun, an open gate. These are enough. Say softly within yourself, "I see only the divine picture. What I see inwardly, I soon walk into outwardly." Feel the truth of it expand quietly through your being. Your word now agrees with your vision. The mold is sound. The builder is ready. And now that your picture has been set clearly, we move forward into the realm of supply itself, into the magic purse of the spirit, which opens only when you cease speaking lack. As you listen, I ask you to imagine for a moment that behind the visible world, behind every circumstance, beyond every appearance of lack or delay, there is an unfailing reservoir of supply, quiet, eternal, inexhaustible. It is not held in banks or in the pockets of men. It is not determined by wages, positions, or the favor of superiors. It is the spiritual storehouse from which all channels of prosperity flow. Florence Scovel Shinn called it the magic purse of the spirit, for it is a purse that cannot empty, a treasure that replenishes itself even as it is used, and a fount from which every true need is answered in perfect ways. And yet, most people live as though this purse were padlocked, as though its treasures belong only to a chosen few. They speak poverty and wonder why the purse remains closed. But the purse does not close by divine decree. It closes by human confession. The moment a man says, "I am poor," or "I cannot afford," or "there is never enough," the spiritual purse withdraws from view, waiting for a better word. I remember a woman who came to me in a state of deep worry. She said, "Mrs. Shinn, money seems to evaporate from my hands. No matter how much I receive, it disappears." I said to her, "Of course it does, for you have spoken evaporation. You have named your purse as one with holes, and life has faithfully obeyed." I asked her to bless her purse each night with the decree, "The magic purse of the Spirit is filled and refilled for me now." At first she resisted, saying, "But my purse is empty." I replied, "It is empty because you expect it to be. Speak of the purse you cannot see, and the one you can see will follow." She obeyed. Within days, small signs appeared: a refunded overpayment, a forgotten credit, a gift from an unexpected source. She felt lighter. Within weeks, her financial life had stabilized. She said, "I feel as though my purse has become enchanted." And I smiled. "No, my dear, it has become obedient." A man once told me he feared poverty more than anything else. He said he lived with a constant sense that disaster hovered behind him. I asked him, "What sentences do you speak?" He confessed that he often said, "I must hold on to every penny. Nothing else is certain." I told him, "You are not holding on to the pennies. The pennies are holding on to you. Your fear has given them authority." I instructed him to begin saying, "My supply comes from God, and God never fails." He looked at me carefully, as though weighing the words. But when he began speaking them before sleep, something remarkable happened. He became calmer. His breath grew deeper. His face softened. The atmosphere around him shifted. Opportunities appeared of their own accord. The fear evaporated. He said, "It is as though I stepped into a current of abundance." And I replied, "You stepped into the law." You must understand that poverty speech is not merely unpleasant, it is spiritually irresponsible. For every time you speak lack, you close a channel, you bolt a door, you fold the purse shut. Yet every time you speak abundance, even when appearances contradict you, you place your hand upon the clasp of the magic purse and say, "Open now." The subconscious responds not to appearances, but to intentions. And supply flows not to the one who works the hardest, but to the one who speaks the law with confidence. Let me give you a small picture that may help you understand. Imagine a great, deep well hidden beneath the surface of your life. When you speak fear, it is as though you cover the well with a heavy stone. No bucket can descend, no water rises. Life appears dry. But when you speak abundance, you lift the stone. The waters surge upward. They are not created by your speech. They were always there. Your word simply allows them to rise. Many people believe they have no well, when in truth they have a well they refuse to uncover. A woman once came to me saying, "I live from paycheck to paycheck." She spoke the phrase with such resignation that I knew it had become her identity. I said, "You live from paycheck to paycheck because you decree it. You have become the echo of your own sentence." I instructed her to say instead, "I live from supply to supply, from blessing to blessing, from opportunity to opportunity." She repeated this softly each night. At first, nothing appeared to change, but her inner posture changed. She stood straighter, breathed more freely, and moved with greater ease. Then her employer invited her to take on a role with higher pay. Then a debt she feared resolving was forgiven. Then a friend offered her a chance to participate in a profitable venture. She returned to me and said, "It feels as though someone trimmed away the struggle." And I replied, "Speech trims what toil cannot." The scriptures tell this story again and again. Consider the widow whose oil did not run out. She poured and poured, and the oil replenished itself as long as she had vessels prepared. Those vessels are the mental containers we form with our speech. When we say, "There is no limit to my supply," we create a large vessel. When we say, "I have just enough to survive," we create a tiny one. The oil flows according to the size of the vessel. And when we speak poverty, we crack the vessel. Remember the miracle of the loaves and fishes. Christ blessed what he had, and because he blessed it, it multiplied. Blessing is not poetic, it is mathematical in the spiritual sense. Blessing expands, complaint contracts. A woman once told me she learned to bless her money when it came in and bless it when it went out. She said, "It now feels like a friendly visitor instead of an anxious stranger." She had discovered the magic purse at work. There is another truth I want you to hear clearly. Supply does not need to be earned, it needs to be aligned. The world teaches that only the industrious prosper, but I have watched many industrious people struggle and many gentle, trusting ones flourish. The difference is not effort, it is speech. A man who trusts supply speaks differently. He moves differently. He does not clutch at pennies nor tremble at bills. He says, "This too is provided for," and life rushes to prove him right. Others begin to notice when the magic purse opens in your life. They cannot explain the change, but they sense it. You will find that people treat you with more warmth. They respect you more deeply. They may ask your advice or seek your company simply because you radiate abundance. Prosperity has a fragrance, and once you acquire it inwardly, the outer world responds as though you carry a torch in a dim place. Let me offer a metaphor. Imagine the magic purse as a lamp. Poverty speech dims the lamp, and you walk through the world unseen, unrecognized, unvalued, but abundant speech brightens the lamp. Suddenly, the path is clear. Others see you. Doors open because the light you carry reveals them. There was once a seamstress who lived in perpetual worry, saying constantly, "I never know when the next customer will come." I told her, "Then your customers do not know when they should come, for your word has left them confused." I instructed her to say, "Every customer appointed to bless me comes in perfect ways." Within weeks, she had more orders than she could fill. Her speech had called them forth. When you bless your purse, you bless your life. When you curse your purse, you curse your path. But the beauty of the law is this: the purse responds instantly to correction. You may have spoken poverty for 20 years, yet 1 week of consistent truth will begin to break the pattern. The magic purse does not hold grudges. It waits. Say softly within yourself, "The magic purse of the Spirit is filled and refilled for me now." Feel the subtle shift as your subconscious accepts the decree. Feel the inner gates opening. Feel the quiet current of supply moving toward you. And now, having understood the purse that never empties, we turn to another great truth: the inherited patterns of lack, how to break them, dissolve them, and step into your rightful promised land. There are burdens that do not belong to you, burdens handed down from those who walked before you, burdens of speech, burdens of belief, burdens woven into the fabric of family conversation. Many households inherit poverty not through circumstances, but through sentences. Fathers say, "Life is hard," and sons echo it. Mothers sigh, "We never get ahead," and daughters weave the phrase into the rhythm of their days. These words settle into the subconscious like sediment at the bottom of a river, shaping its flow long after the speaker has forgotten them. But no mental inheritance is stronger than a conscious choice. You can break a pattern in a single moment if you refuse to speak the words that sustain it. I met a woman who carried a heavy sadness about her finances. She told me her mother had often said, "We are not the fortunate type." Her grandmother had said it before her, and the phrase had become a kind of family proverb, spoken half jokingly, but believed far more deeply than anyone admitted. This woman found that every time she tried to advance, whether in work, relationships, or creative pursuits, something held her back. As we talked, she realized she had been repeating her family's declaration for years without questioning it. I said to her gently, "My dear, your grandmother's word has been sitting at your table long enough. It is time to dismiss it." I instructed her to say instead, "I walk in divine favor. What my family waited for, I now receive." She felt a tremor in her spirit, as though she had touched a locked door. But the moment she spoke the new decree, the old fortress of limitation began to crumble. Within 3 months, opportunities arose that her family had never known. New work, unexpected support, and a sense of favor she had not imagined possible. She said, "It feels as if I am the first in my line to breathe freely," and indeed she was. Generational poverty is a fortress built brick by brick with familiar phrases. But just as Joshua and his men walked around the walls of Jericho until they fell, you too can walk around the walls of your inherited limitations. The Israelites did not fight the walls. They did not batter them with tools. They did not reason with them. They walked in silence. They honored the divine command. They held their tongues until instructed to shout, and when the shout came, the walls fell flat. So it is with the walls around your life. Silence dissolves old patterns. Speech establishes new ones. A man once came to me ashamed of his financial state. He said, "Mrs. Shinn, no one in my family has ever prospered." I looked at him with all the compassion I could gather and said, "My dear, that is exactly why you have been chosen. The one who recognizes the pattern is the one empowered to break it." He had grown up hearing phrases like, "Money doesn't stay with us," and "people like us are not meant for success." These lines had become the bricks of his Jericho. I instructed him to say daily, "Every barrier to my good now crumbles. I move forward into my promised land." He obeyed with sincerity. Soon his countenance changed. He walked differently, spoke differently, expected differently, and as his inner footing shifted, life rearranged itself to match. He found new work, favorable connections, and a confidence that made him look like an entirely new man. He said, "It feels as though the ground beneath me changed shape," and I replied, "It changed because your word changed." Remember this: families pass down vocabulary far more faithfully than fortunes, and the vocabulary becomes the invisible fence around their lives. One household repeats, "We always struggle," and generation after generation circles the same desert. Another repeats, We are blessed coming in and blessed going out, and prosperity becomes their inheritance. You cannot carry the vocabulary of lack and expect the promised land to open to you. The promised land has a dialect, and that dialect is faith. A woman I once taught had grown up in a home where every financial discussion was filled with fear. She said that even as a child, she felt a chill whenever bills arrived. Her parents meant no harm, but they had inherited the same dread from their own parents, and they passed it along with every whisper of, "How will we manage?" This woman carried that dread into adulthood. She feared the mailbox, the telephone, the arrival of any unexpected expense. I told her, "You must break the atmosphere of your childhood. Every time you say, 'I cannot handle this,' you repeat the fear of your ancestors. But every time you say, 'This too is provided for,' you speak a new lineage into being." She practiced faithfully. She blessed every bill. She thanked God for every payment. She refused to rehearse the old dread. And soon, her home became a sanctuary of peace. Her children began saying, "We always have enough," and indeed they did. The generational story had turned. I want you to see this clearly. You are not responsible for the sentences spoken before you, but you are responsible for whether you continue them. You may have inherited the pattern, but you are not required to inherit the fate. The moment you choose a new word, you step out of the lineage of lack and into the divine lineage of abundance. Let me give you an image. Imagine you are standing at a great fork in the road. One path is well-worn, familiar, carved by generations of footsteps. The other is newly lit, quiet, waiting for your first step. The familiar path whispers the old sentences. Be careful. Don't expect too much. Life is a struggle. The lit path whispers only one thing. Come forward. When you speak in the language of the familiar path, you reinforce it. But when you speak in the language of the lit path, language of faith, expectation, and divine provision, you build a new road not only for yourself, but for every life connected to yours. There was once a household filled with constant talk of misfortune. The parents believed it kept them humble. Their children grew anxious without knowing why. When the mother learned of my teachings, she stopped speaking fear aloud. She allowed the children to hear only words of blessing. She said, "Divine order governs this home. All good comes to us in perfect ways." The atmosphere changed. The children slept better. The father became more cheerful. The home itself seemed brighter. She said to me, "It is as though the walls have taken on a new vibration," and they had. Speech had repainted them. Speech does not merely alter your personal life. It alters the spiritual climate of your entire household. When you change the climate, you change the destiny. Remember the story of Gideon. He believed his family was the least in Israel, that he was unfit to lead. But the angel said to him, "Go in this thy might." The moment Gideon accepted a new identity through a new word, victory became inevitable. The same is true for you. Your new words become your might. Say softly within yourself, "Every ancient burden dissolves now. I walk in my promised land with praise." Feel the centuries of limitation fall away like dust from an old garment. Feel the ground beneath you lighten. Feel the atmosphere shift around your life. You are not merely changing your speech, you are changing your lineage. And now, having broken the walls of Jericho, you stand ready to enter the seventh and final revelation. How to become a person who cannot speak poverty because their identity has already risen above it. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when prosperity ceases to be something they reach for and becomes something they walk in. A moment when abundance is not merely a desire held in the mind, nor a decree repeated upon waking, but a natural state of being, quiet, steady, effortless. It is the moment when the inner identity has shifted so completely that the old language of lack feels foreign on the tongue, as though one were trying to speak in a dialect long forgotten. This is the moment when a person enters the promised land not by force, but by consciousness. They no longer try to attract prosperity, they become prosperity. A woman once came to me after practicing her affirmations and pictures for several months. She said, "Mrs. Shinn, I feel as though something in me has changed. When people complain about money, I cannot join them. When someone says, 'Times are hard,' the words feel heavy to me. I do not know how to speak that way anymore." I looked at her and said, "My dear, you have crossed the threshold. Poverty can no longer claim you because you no longer claim it." Her finances had improved, but the true miracle was within. The poverty identity had dissolved. Identity is the final gateway, for you cannot walk as a prosperous soul while wearing the garments of a pauper. And the garment of poverty is speech. When that garment falls away, the true self emerges, radiant, confident, divinely provided for. Others respond instinctively. They treat you with more respect, more warmth, more expectation of success, not because of any outer display, but because of the inner certainty you carry. I once counseled an artist whose work was delicate and beautiful, yet she lived in constant fear of scarcity. She had been taught that artists never make much. Her early speech matched the pattern. She said things like, "I just hope someone will buy my work," or, "I never know if I can continue this." I taught her to shift her identity through her words, saying instead, "My work is divinely inspired, and those appointed to bless me find me." In the beginning, she said the words with trembling, for they contradicted everything she believed about herself. But she persisted. One day, she came to me with shining eyes. "Mrs. Shinn," she said, "something strange has happened. I no longer feel like a struggling artist. I feel like someone whose work belongs in the world." From that day forward, her income multiplied. Galleries approached her. Patrons sought her out. But the true change had occurred inwardly. She no longer spoke the language of struggle because she no longer believed she was the kind of woman who struggled. Identity is not merely a collection of thoughts. It is the vibration formed by repeated words. A man who says daily, "I walk in abundance," will one day speak it not as an affirmation, but as a fact of his being. His tone will change. His posture will change. His decisions will change. And when he speaks, his word will carry the authority of someone who expects to be obeyed by life. Consider David, who declared victory before he faced Goliath. He did not simply hope for triumph. He spoke from the identity of one already triumphant. His word carried the vibration of certainty. Or think of Christ, who thanked God before the loaves multiplied. Gratitude was spoken from identity, not as a request, but as acknowledgement. When identity and word align, miracles follow as naturally as sunrise. A remarkable thing occurs when your identity rises. The world reflects it back to you without your asking. People begin offering assistance, opportunities, respect. You become magnetic, drawing to yourself the things that match your inner state. A woman once told me that after shifting her identity, people treated her as though she were wealthy even before her finances changed. I said, "They see who you have become before the outer world completes its arrangement." Let me give you a picture. Imagine yourself standing on a hill, clothed in garments woven from your words. If your garments are woven from the thread of lack, they hang heavy and dim. But when you speak abundance, the garments brighten. They take on the sheen of confidence, the color of expectancy, the drape of peace. Soon, you forget the old garments altogether, and when someone tries to speak poverty to you, it feels as though they are asking you to wear clothes that no longer fit. A man once came to me saying, "My finances have improved, but I fear losing it all again." I told him, "Then your identity still remembers the old garment." I instructed him to speak, "There is no loss in divine mind I cannot lose." He repeated this until the fear dissolved. Only then did he step into the permanence of prosperity, for abundance cannot stay where fear is master. You must understand, abundance is not fragile, fear is fragile. Fear collapses when confronted by faith. Poverty collapses when confronted by identity. When your identity is that of a prosperous, divinely guided soul, you cannot speak poverty because it does not resonate with the truth within you. It would be as unnatural as calling the noon sun midnight. In this elevated state, speech becomes not a tool, but a revelation. You speak abundance because you are abundance. You speak favor because you walk in favor. You speak confidence because you carry confidence. Others sense this transformation. They may say, "You have changed," or "There is something different about you." They will trust you more, respect you more, and treat you according to the identity you radiate. Many will try to draw you back into the old vocabulary, conversations of fear, lack, worry, and limitation, but you will feel an inner resistance. Not a forced discipline, but a natural impossibility. You cannot return to Egypt once you have tasted the promised land. You cannot circle the wilderness once you have breathed the air of Canaan. The walls have fallen. The gates have opened. You have crossed over. A mother once told me she stopped speaking poverty for her children's sake. She said, "I want them to grow up expecting good." Her children soon began bringing home stories of unexpected blessings, gifts, opportunities, joys. She said, "It is as though the atmosphere of our home changed," and it had. The atmosphere of a home is shaped by the identity of the one who governs its vocabulary. Your life will begin to move with astonishing ease once your identity shifts. The old worries will feel distant, as though belonging to another lifetime. Bills will no longer frighten you. They will merely pass through your hands as evidence of a life being lived. Opportunities will appear without strain. Intuition will guide you gently. The right people will find you. You will look back and scarcely recognize the person who once believed poverty was a fact rather than a decree. Now say softly within yourself, "What God has done for others, He now does for me and more." I am aligned with my divine identity. Feel the truth settling into your bones. Feel the old garment falling away. Feel the new robe of abundance resting upon your shoulders. You have completed the lesson, but the transformation continues. For when speech and identity become one, the entire universe bends to bless you. As you grow still now, let everything you have heard settle into the quiet places of your being, as gently as snow resting upon a waiting field. The moment you understand the power of your word, your life begins to soften, to open, to rearrange itself under the guidance of divine intelligence. There is nothing more for you to struggle with, nothing more to force with anxious hands, nothing more to chase through worry or dread. For what once seemed far from you has drawn near. What once seemed withheld has stepped forward. What once felt uncertain has become inevitable. You have aligned yourself with the great law, and the law responds with exquisite precision. You may feel something subtle even now, a loosening around the heart. a warmth at the center of your being, a sense that the heavy mantle you once wore has fallen to the ground. That is the release of the poverty pattern. It does not scream as it departs. It slips away quietly because it has been dismissed by truth. Your new words have taken their rightful place, and they fill the chambers of your subconscious like a soft, radiant light. You need not hold them tightly. They hold you. They steady your steps. They smooth your path. They go before you to prepare the way, and they remain behind you to guard your blessings. Others may not understand what has happened within you, but they will feel it. They will notice that your speech has changed. But more than that, your atmosphere has changed. When you enter a room, you will bring with you the fragrance of peace. When you speak, you will speak from certainty. When you stand, you will stand as one who knows that all things are working together for good. People will treat you differently without knowing why. They will sense that you expect favor, and they will offer it. They will feel that you walk under divine protection, and they will honor it. Let your breath grow slow, for you are not rushing toward abundance. Abundance is rushing toward you. Every right opportunity is drawing nearer. Every channel appointed to bless you is opening. Every step of your path is being illuminated gently, so gently that you will not realize how far you have traveled until you look back and see that the old land is no longer visible. You cannot return to the vocabulary of lack. You cannot return to the identity that once clung to fear. You cannot return to the cramped room of old beliefs. The doors have opened, the walls have fallen, the garment has changed. Say softly within yourself, I speak only the truth of my divine supply. My good is secure. My path is open. Feel the words wrap around you like a warm cloak. Feel the atmosphere shift, as though unseen hands have begun arranging your affairs with delicate precision. Nothing is being withheld. Nothing is being delayed. The law does not procrastinate. It fulfills instantly at the level of your acceptance. Think of the countless men and women throughout the ages who transformed their lives not by toil, but by speech. Ordinary souls who awakened to extraordinary truth. Some were merchants, some were artists, some were mothers tending small homes. Some were clerks behind modest counters. Yet each one discovered the secret, that life obeys the voice of the one who expects good. And as they changed their word, life stepped aside like a courteous servant and said, Very well, as you wish. You are now among them. You have taken your place in the lineage of those who shape their world with the authority of their tongue. If a faint memory of fear arises, let it drift away like a cloud passing across the sun. You need not wrestle with it. You need only return to your decree. The decree stands, the law stands. Your word has gone forth and will not return void. It will accomplish that which you please and prosper in the thing where you send it. Imagine now that you stand upon the threshold of a great new season. The air is fresh, carrying the promise of blessings not yet seen, but already formed. The path ahead glows faintly, as though lit from beneath. You do not need to know every step. You need only place your foot upon the first stone. The rest will appear under grace. Say gently, What belongs to me comes swiftly. What is not mine departs easily. All that I seek is already seeking me. Feel the truth resonate through you. Feel your shoulders relax, your breath deepen, your mind grow still. This is the state in which the subconscious receives instruction. This is the posture in which prosperity is born. Your life will not unfold as it once did. The old patterns have no power here. Poverty has no voice here. You have become the guardian of your tongue, the steward of your atmosphere, the architect of your word. You will find yourself speaking differently without effort. You will bless rather than complain. You will expect rather than fear. You will allow rather than struggle. And every time you speak truth, the universe rearranges itself with delightful obedience. Before you now lies the promised land, not a place, but a state of consciousness. A land where good comes in perfect ways, where supply arrives before the need, where opportunities appear at the appointed moment, where peace reigns within your home and within your heart. You have crossed the threshold. You may walk forward with confidence, for the same power that brought you this far will guide you the rest of the way. Now let your breath become softer still. Let the words settle like golden dust upon the surface of your mind. Let the silence after this sentence become your sanctuary. There is nothing more to do, nothing more to correct, nothing more to seek. Your good is assured. Your supply is flowing. Your word has been spoken, and the universe has said, Amen. Rest now in divine abundance. Rest now in divine certainty. Rest now in divine truth. For you have spoken the language of your new life, and your new life is already unfolding beneath your feet.